Hello, everyone. So, welcome to Birds Explored, episode 3. So, today we are talking about Caracaras and Falconets. We have two groups. So, the Caracaras and Falconets, two remarkable bird groups. They are birds of prey and exhibit fascinating adaptations and behaviors. That allow them to thrive in diverse environments. And Caracaras, known for their intelligence and versatility, and adapt to range of habitats and from lush tropical rainforests to stark landscapes of Falkland Islands. And their diets differ significantly from other raptors. And on the smaller scale, we are going to talk about falconets. Some of the smallest raptors employ unique hunting technique to capture insects and small vertebrates, despite their diminutive size. So these adaptations not only highlight their roles in the respective ecosystems, but also underscore the challenges they face from environmental change and human interactions. Okay, so this is short introduction for this episode, and as I said, we are going to talk about Caracaras and Falconets in detail. So Peter is here. I'm going to take him to the studio. Hi, Peter.
Hello,
Welcome to
Nico.
episode 3.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Okay.
So, yeah, you heard the introduction. So, we are talking about Caracaras and Falconets. If you want to start with Caracaras, we can.
Yeah, sure.
They are interesting bird group. I read something interesting about them, and I have a couple of different questions we can discuss. The Caracaras are known for their intelligence and problem-solving abilities. So, do you know any examples of this behavior observed in the wilds? Before we get in our presentation, we have already the presentation, and then we are talking about the diversity in the group. Actually, there is not only one species in Caracaras,
Right.
but we can
Uh,
start with this question.
yeah. Well, yeah, they're pretty intelligent, apparently, and are able to survive quite well under conditions that they may have to find themselves modifying the environment a little bit. Um,
Yes.
yeah, looking under leaves and rocks and things like that for prey. Um, they can be rather social and work in groups. Um, the best example of that is the striated caracara that's found in the Falkland Islands, also known as the Johnny Rook.
Ah,
They're quite social, and they will help each other in chasing down prey and in nest construction and raising the young. But the person who is the expert on the striated caracara is Jonathan Myberg. Jonathan Myberg is a man who came here to see us at the museum to look at specimens of striated caracara, but he spent a lot of time in the field, um, some years in the Falklands, and studied these striated caracaras and their behavior very closely for a long time. And he got a master's degree with a thesis on the striated caracara. But he also wrote a book that is really a delight to read and tells you a lot about the intelligence of these caracaras, in particular the striated caracara. And I think we have a link to his book in the
right.
yeah
So I can take this book to the screen.
yeah.
We
Let's
are
take a look at it.
we are going to be small on the screen, but
Yeah, yeah, there it
I
is.
think this book,
Yep, a most remarkable creature. It's been out for a while now, but
right?
no, it's very well written, and it's written in the style of sort of the old field naturalists, like Darwin and folks like that. And it would be good if we could maybe get Jonathan on the podcast one day to talk about the book and his experience with those caracaras. Maybe do a long interview with him.
Yeah,
And
yes, we talked about this opportunity. I think it's gonna be very nice, and we
yeah,
should just invite him. Yeah, you have the connection with him.
yeah, yeah. So
You-
Yeah, so he talks a lot about their intelligence and how funny they can be. He talks about how they would figure out that the field workers would have stuff in their backpacks, and they'd leave their backpacks on the ground, and the cars would figure out how to get into the backpack and steal things, and look around in there, see if there was food and anything they could eat in there. So it's kind of funny and interesting, but it attests to the intelligence and the curiosity of these birds in general.
Right, right. Well, it is nice start for Caracaras. And then I have the other other presentation. Just a second. I'm remove the this one from the stage.
Hmm?
And the other one is, maybe we should just show all these species.
Yeah,
And because yeah, I when I see the Caracara, I thought they look like vultures,
they do. They look a lot like vultures. They look a little bit like hawks. It's
but they are real raptors. I mean, the vultures, just feed on the dead birds, dead animals.
yeah. Well,
I mean, garbage, junk, and
so do caracaras. So they're somewhat convergent on the vultures. What's really interesting about these caracaras, there's 5 genera and 11 species. One species is extinct, the Guadalupe caracara, but they are actually in the family Falconidae. Maybe the
Mhm.
viewers remember we talked about the peregrine falcon and the true falcons in the genus Falco when we first started in episode 1. Um, it's
Yes.
it's so strange to think that these caracaras that are vulture-like in appearance, hawk-like in appearance, are actually in the same family as the peregrine falcon, the true falcons. And we didn't know that, years ago. Taxonomists would have placed these birds in their own family or in or with the vultures. Um, but the DNA evidence uh, suggests strongly that they are, in fact, true falcons. But they differ in habits with the true falcons. These caracars are quite terrestrial. They spend a lot of time on the ground. So if you look
Mhm.
at this photo here of looks like the crested caracara in the genus Caracara, um, it's got long legs and it's got short stubby toes. A peregrine falcon has toes that are very long to smack avian prey out of the air. Caracaras wander around on the ground. They look for insects. They look for small mammals. They look for small birds. They look for reptiles, and they catch them with these short toes, um, and, uh, and feed on them. The short toe is an adaptation in these terrestrial birds so that they can grab things in the grass without a long toe getting in the way. You can
Mhm.
imagine a long falcon toe, like a peregrine toe, nice long toe. In the grass is kind of useful, or on the useless. On the ground, it's kind of useless because there's a lot of grass and shrubs. That toe would get caught up in things like that. But these caracaras have these short toes, and it gets right down into the grass and into the
Right.
leaves, and they're able to grasp prey that way. And you look at the diversity in
Yeah, I
this group
will.
of birds. Yeah,
Yeah, I will ask about this diversity, but I just want to try to find the toes in a good picture to see
yeah.
the toes.
Well, those look sort of longish, but if
Right.
you could look at the genus Caracara, the crested Caracara, um, which is more terrestrial than these other ones,
Right.
perhaps. Yeah,
Actually, I'm just thinking right now. Mm,
you can see it actually. That photo there on the extreme right. You see the
right.
Caracara is walking on the ground there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see it's almost like a turkey or a chicken. With
That's
these
true. I
short
mean, yeah.
toes. Yeah, yeah.
And
And
also the Peter, there is genus Caracara, but also
right.
the others.
Oh yeah.
There is not only the one genus.
Right. There's 5
I mean,
genera. Right.
5 genera. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
So there are examples that I put in this presentation.
Hmm.
So for example, the crested caracara,
Right.
it has really wide distribution in South
Yeah.
America.
Yeah, well, not just south of it. This is the one that you can
Yeah,
find in the United States, in the Southwest, and in the Southeast. There's, if you look at that map there, there's a little range in Florida. You see that?
right. That's
And
true. Yeah.
and yeah, and I'm in New York, and occasionally, vagrant caracaras wind up in New Jersey and in New York. There's been a couple of records over the past few years. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that with respect to global warming, maybe having something to do with that. But this crested caracara, as you can see, gets into Mexico, Central America, and not in the interior of South America so much, but in the jungle, but in the north and the east and the southeast. The crested caracara is the national bird of Mexico. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about how these birds sort of fit in with human culture and so on. So what
That's,
good?
that's true. I'm gonna ask the question later. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is the crested caracara. So it has a wide distribution range, very wide separate.
Mm-hmm.
And then the another one, I just want to show these
Yeah. Right.
diversity.
Right.
Red-throated caracara.
Yeah.
Again, it has really wide distribution. I mean, including Amazon forests.
Yeah. Well, you see, it's more of a forest bird than the other one. Mm-hmm.
So the other one is black caracara. I mean,
Right.
it's kind of interesting, and I always like I'm in Ankara. I'm in Turkey right now. So here in Turkey we have the vulture, Egyptian vulture. So it looks like
It
black
does.
Egyptian vulture.
Look, the genus Neophron, the Egyptian vulture.
Right.
And it's interesting that you brought that up. So these caracaras, they have a lot of bare skin on the face.
Yes.
And we think that birds that feed on a lot of carrion have bare skin on their face. So it's convergent on the vultures, and we think that it's because if these birds have a fully feathered face, then the decaying meat, the putrefying meat that they eat, it gets stuck in the feathers, and they can't really clean those feathers efficiently. And the idea is that this prevents bacteria from being near the eyes and the nose, not the nose, but the nares, the nasal openings of birds,
Right.
to sort of protect them from getting too much of a bacterial load when they feed on carrion.
So I just want to continue with the other species.
Yeah.
Carunculated caracara.
Yeah, that's an
I mean,
interesting range. Yeah.
it's interesting range and very narrow range actually
Right.
when we compare this one to others.
Right.
So another interesting range. I think it's on Andes,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Mountain caracara. It's high elevation bird.
Right. Yeah, that
So,
range would indicate that it's really, really got high.
but for example, this one looks like more diurnal raptor, not like the vulture. I mean,
Right. Right.
looks
That's interesting. Looks a
like
little more.
like real eagle.
Yeah, like an eagle or a hawk. Right. It's got
Right.
less bare skin on the face, and
Right.
maybe feeds more on living prey than carrion.
Right. And also the other one, white-throated caracara.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Okay.
is also the southern part of the South America.
Right. Again, very hawk-like.
Yes, that's true. And the other caracaras, look at them. I mean,
Right. So this is the
five of them, five more.
Yeah, this is the striated caracara on the left and the crested caracara on the right. So you can see that the toes are relatively short
Yes.
compared to even some of the other caracaras, but certainly way shorter than that of the true falcons in the genus Falco.
That's true.
Although there are some exceptions in the genus Falco. For instance, kestrels have fairly short toes because they like to grab grasshoppers and mice and little birds in the grass. So it's clearly an adaptation for being able to hunt in grassy, shrubby areas.
Peter, what role do caracaras play in ecosystems where they are found?
Well, just like any other raptor species, they're quite important in keeping an ecological balance between them and their prey items. These birds eat an awful lot of mice, rodents, insects, animals that are very abundant and reproduce very rapidly. So it's
Right.
it's long been thought that that's the ecological position of raptors in general in nature, is to kind of keep down those numbers of rapidly reproducing animals.
And also when we think about, I mean, parental care and the breeding habits, is there any difference when we compare them to other raptors?
Well, when we compare them to other falcons, remember, caracaras, as strange as they look, are true falcons. They're in there with the peregrine falcon, the prairie falcon, the merlin, all those falcons. And if folks remember, or they can go back to our first episode, remember we talked about how the falcons generally don't build a nest. They lay their eggs on a bare cliff or a building ledge. And some of the falcons use the old nests of crows and hawks. But caracaras are interesting in that they are falcons in the falcon family that build a stick nest like a hawk. They lay their eggs in that nest, and are more hawk-like in that regard.
I see. And they are interesting birds. I mean, they look like very interesting, the other raptors.
Yeah.
So, well, can we discuss the significance of caracaras in local cultures and folklore within their range? You already gave an example at the beginning, but
Yeah.
we
Well, I mentioned that the crested caracara is the national bird of Mexico,
right.
and often places will pick.
That one, that one
Yeah,
is the national bird.
right.
For,
That's also called it's also called the Mexican eagle sometimes. I know people who live in Texas who will see caracaras and refer to them as the Mexican eagle instead of caracara. So it's just
okay.
sort of a local name, a name in Mexico and parts of Texas. And these birds are, they're regal in appearance. They are resourceful. They're revered for their strength and for their um, ability to survive in harsh environments. So it's not surprising that the caracara is occasionally used as a symbol for various cultures in Central and South America and in the southwestern parts of North America.
Right. Well, thanks a lot, all these answers. And when I see this diversity within
Hmm.
genera, I
Right.
mean,
Just
I
five.
mean,
Just 11 species. One is extinct,
right,
and so five genera, 11 species. So it's only 11 species, and yet all of these illustrations you've put up show quite a bit of variability in their plumage, in their size, in the length of their toes, in uh, the amount of naked skin around the face. Very, very interesting group of birds.
yeah, when I see this diversity and I looked the climate change effect on Caracaras, and I mean, I found the temperature change and precipitation patterns affect their habitats a
Sure,
lot.
sure.
So not really exactly on Caracaras, the habitat alteration and habitat, I mean, destruction because of the climate change really affect the Caracaras environment and Caracaras population. And also, I think the climate change affects food availability, well, based on a couple of different studies. And then, I mean, prey dynamics plus competitive interactions were
Yeah,
affect,
well,
are affected by climate change, and these things affect Caracaras populations in their distribution range.
yeah, and some of the species that are associated with the rainforests in Central South America are going to have to deal with habitat destruction too. It's not just the change in temperature, but deforestation, which also has to do with changes in temperature as well.
Right,
Um,
that's true. But I think deforestation also in base, well, especially on the South America, it should affect the population size of this bird species.
I would expect that the birds that are higher up in the Andes are less vulnerable,
Right.
and the striated caracara, and Jonathan Myberg could maybe talk to us about this. The striated caracaras on the Falkland Islands, which are really sort of windswept, kind of barren islands.
Hmm.
Um, and though there may be some human interference there that is detrimental to those caracaras there. He could explain it. That's a place where it's not very hospitable to people. So, that caracara might have sort of a more of a safe place to to be than the other ones.
Right, right. I mean, this is certainly very interesting bird group, and I think I have all these slides for Caracaras, and I finished my question about
Yeah,
Caracaras.
we
And
might want to just mention if on that slide is a species called the Guadalupe caracara, which is extinct and became extinct, if I'm remembering correctly, in 1911. I may have that wrong, but early 1900s, the Guadalupe caracara. It was decimated by people who were raising goats on Guadalupe
hmm,
Island, and so the farmers, the goat herders, were constantly killing the Guadalupe caracara till they were down to a population size that wasn't able to reproduce anymore, and they disappeared.
right,
So it's within historical times.
okay. So the today's second bird group is falconets.
Right.
So I mean, they are also very very interesting raptors.
Yep.
It's tiny tiny raptors.
Tiny.
Well, looks like tiny. I mean, small raptors, very small
Yeah.
raptors.
Well, it's funny because our last episode you asked about the harpy eagle,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
probably the biggest one,
Yeah, the
and
biggest one.
now we got the little ones, the tiniest.
Little ones, tinies. And then I mean, they feed on beetles, insects. I mean, I
Small,
don't know. They small preys.
yeah, lizards, little lizards, probably little birds if they can get them sometime.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna ask you, is there any bird species
yeah, well,
that
I
which they
don't know.
prefer?
Well, I don't know for sure, but I'm speculating that since they are little little falcons, uh, that occasionally they'll eat other birds of some kind. It's probably not a main part of their diet. Mostly insects and small vertebrates like that.
But I just want to show their, I mean, couple of pictures
Right.
for falconets. Their pictures. So I mean, look at them.
Yeah.
All these falconets. It's
Yeah, you can tell.
small,
Yeah.
small. It's interesting bird.
Yeah, well, the one on the right, he's tiny, but he looks pissed off, right? He's 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 still kind of he knows he's a little falcon.
How many falconet species you ever seen?
In the wild, I have never seen a wild falconet.
Right,
I've seen captive ones, and
captive ones.
there's also another group of little falcons called pygmy falcons, which are a little different than falconets. But I've seen those in captivity too. I've seen falconets in the zoos and that sort of thing.
Okay,
But the one on the left looks like the spot winged falconet, and the one on the
right.
right looks like the masked falconet, or
Yeah, this is spot-wing falconet. That's true.
okay.
You are right.
That-
And
right
look at
now,
the distribution range in South America.
right. So that's the only falconet in the New World, I found in South America, and it does have sort of it's got a large distribution there. But then there's this weird little population over there in the corner. I don't know what that's about, but I don't know if they were together at one point or if they're considered subspecies. Uh, I'm not familiar enough with this bird, but you can see, even though it's a small little bird, probably about the size. I'm trying to compare it, so that
So
folks will
when
know.
we compare the harpy eagle and the falconet, it's huge difference between them.
Yeah, well, the falconet's probably the same size as the falconet's middle toe.
Right. Well, I mean, I have a question. Is there any, well, when we compare falconets and the passerines,
Hmm.
They look like, I mean, the crow size.
No, no, they're smaller than that.
Smaller than that. Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
they're. I don't know. I'm trying to think about a bird that most people would be familiar with. Maybe a starling.
My goodness,
Yeah,
wow.
maybe a starling. Maybe a little bigger than a starling. Of course, the shape is different. The anatomy is different, but
But they are raptors,
yeah,
not
they are.
starlings.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're not right, but they're about the same size as a starling. It's,
wow.
yeah, yeah. She's got a little hooked beak there. You can see.
I mean,
Yeah,
they are probably the same size with the some shrikes,
yeah, yeah. Maybe a little
bigger one.
more. Yeah, maybe a little robust, more robust. Maybe a little through the shoulders there, and maybe maybe a little heavier. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's yeah. It's they're just really small. And if you have any photos of their toes, they tend to have fairly short toes as well. And
Right.
again, you've got the big falcons in the genus Falco that have these incredibly long toes. They knock birds out of the air with them. These
Mm.
little sort of essentially forest raptors have these short toes for grabbing insects in the grass and grabbing lizards on a tree or something like that.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions here. I mean, I was going to ask you, what unique hunting techniques do falconets employ to capture their prey? Do you know, is there any unique hunting
Well, I'm not.
technique?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about the techniques themselves. I mean, I imagine they.
The techniques, I mean, differ from the other raptors. I mean, the big ones.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Those large falcons will stay up high in the air and they'll stoop down. They'll dive down on something below. It doesn't mean that they won't take something on the ground, but their usual strategy is to capture prey by knocking it out of the air. Usually other birds.
Okay.
Sometimes bats. Some falcons will eat bats that way. But these little falconets, they've got sort of short, rounded wings for being in the forests. We discussed that at one point, in one of the other episodes. These uh, these falconets are found in pretty tropical areas, so they got sort of a long tail, short, rounded wings, and move through the canopy. Probably pounce on a lot of insects. They probably sit on a branch and just kind of pounce down on something they see below. It's interesting when we talk about raptors in general. They say, oh, well, they hunt this way, they hunt that way, and they only eat this, they only eat that. Back in the old days, if you read the old books, you would think that certain raptors, that all of them were really specific, that they only went after and caught and ate, like one thing. But they're opportunists for the most part. They may concentrate on a single prey species, but if there's something that they can catch easily and they can eat it, I think that they take the opportunity to do that.
Okay. So also, I'm gonna ask you another question. Actually, I asked this question for Caracaras, but I'm also curious about this question for falconets. What role do falconets play in their ecosystems in terms of like a controlling insect population?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the answer to the question. The same sort of thing as with all raptor species, that they are useful in keeping down the populations of insects for the most part. See, it's interesting. Size plays a lot into this. So these birds catch a lot of insects. The caracaras probably eat a lot more rodents, animals like that. And then the larger birds of prey will feed on game birds and these sorts of things. So it kind of depends on the size and the adaptation of the raptor to the kind of prey species that they're adapted to taking. And each one fulfills sort of a role in keeping down the numbers of prey species, which tend to reproduce a lot faster than the predator species.
Okay. And Peter, also, I'm curious the size difference between males and females, sexual dimorphism. So the falconets has the same size difference.
Yeah,
Other reptiles has the females is bigger than males.
yeah, I think that's true in this group. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, Peter, thank you so much. Today we talked about caracaras and falconets, and then I think I finished my question. And
Yes, all in the same family, the Falconity, but
yeah,
incredibly diverse.
diverse. Yeah, the diversity is really, I mean, it's an important term. And also we can see these important term when we look at the raptors. We can see the diversity, and then we can understand what diversity means. I mean,
Yeah.
this is really interesting. And thank you very much for today.
Thank you.
We are ending episode 3, and I think we can say the episode something about episode 4. So we are going to talk about golden eagle
And bald eagle.
and bald eagle in the next episode. Okay. See you soon.
Okay, Utku, looking forward to it.
Okay, bye. And today we talked about 2 different groups, and then as we said, the next episode is going to be the other raptors. So bye for now.